What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made these. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, fatty, saucy, sweet, and savory brisket burnt ends. Coming up! Burnt ends. Everybody loves a good burnt end. And more often than not, it's that first bite someone gets that can really help redefine what barbecue can be. I know for me, my first bite of Texas barbecue was a burnt end handed to me in line at a barbecue joint, and it's really what sent me on this whole barbecue journey. But here in Texas, a brisket burnt end is still just the burnt end. It's that first slice off the fatty brisket that is covered in bark. It's the most well-marbled part of the whole brisket, and really is the best part. But you can't talk about burnt ends without talking about Kansas City. And the story goes, back in the day, most Kansas City joints were serving sliced brisket sandwiches with that Kansas City sauce on it, and all the burnt edges of the brisket were deemed not worthy for sandwiches. So they would pile up on the cutting board, and then they would get handed out to people in line, or people would just grab them off the board, and it quickly became their favorite part as well. So to capitalize on the popularity of this cut, joints in Kansas City started separating the flat muscle from the point muscle, and using that point muscle to smoke, and then cube up into burnt ends, and make it a full menu item. And while I've known about this for years, I've never actually done it. Probably because I'm cooking Texas style barbecue, and the few burnt ends you get are great, and I do love a nice slice of fatty brisket. But that being said, today we're gonna make some classic brisket burnt ends, and it is going to be delicious. This is a brisket. This is a prime brisket, picked it up at my local HEB, and now it's time to trim it up. Starting on the back side here, I'm gonna take out this decal fat, as I always do. There's a nice little separation in there, it wants to come out. I suppose you could leave this in, but you're gonna get some burnt ends that are 100% fat if you do that, and that doesn't sound very appetizing. So, out this comes. Next up, we're gonna separate the point from the flat by following this fat seam. As you can see right here, all the way through here, this muscle is separated from this muscle by that big band of fat. So we're gonna go through and just start taking it out. Oh, this feels weird. It feels wrong. Just following it all the way down. And if we flip it over, it's gonna end right in this area. It kind of feathers off and tapers up in this region. And there we have it, lean removed. So now we are left with just the point meat. Still looks like a brisket. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start taking some of this fat off the back, because there is a lot of it, and we've got plenty of fat cap on the other side, so we don't want any of this in there. But I suppose you could leave it on if you wanted some extra fatty burnt ends. Nothing to it, folks. And on this end, this is all fat, so we're gonna trim that down a little bit as well. Just trying to make it look nice. Big chunk of fat on that thin end. Gonna have a lot of fat for making some beef tallow today. Looking pretty good. Just gonna give it some nice shaping while I'm back here. Don't want anything too jagged. I was about to say because it might burn up. We are making burnt ends after all, but anything that's too thin is gonna get real crispy and crunchy. And that's not necessarily what we want. And just look at that beautiful marbling on this thing. That's why fatty brisket is so good. Onto this side, I'm gonna take this fat cap down just a little bit, just like I normally would. Leave about a 1/4 inch or so of fat on there. Birds are really going at it today, aren't they? Give it some nice shape. Make sure these edges aren't tapered too much. And there we have it. Looks like a tiny brisket, except it's 100% fatty brisket at this point. And that is looking pretty good to me. It's all that marbling and intramuscular fat and connective tissue and all that good stuff that's really gonna give us some beautiful burnt ends. And again, you don't have to make it all pretty and whatnot, because this is all gonna get cubed up anyway, but might as well. So that is looking pretty good to me. I think it's time to get our seasoning together. Now, Kansas City is not nearly as minimalistic as Texas barbecue, and I'm not just talking about their sweet sauce, but also their rubs. They tend to not use just salt and pepper. So today we're gonna make a bit more of a complex rub, starting with some Lowry seasoned salt. Texas barbecue's worst kept secret, according to Daniel Vaughn's latest article, where he gave me a good shout out. Thank you, Daniel. Now, Lowry's is pretty tasty stuff. It's essentially salt with some more savory spices like garlic and onion and whatnot, but it's much finer than kosher salt, which I'm used to using. So if I was gonna do my typical rub ratio of 2 parts 16 mesh black pepper to 1 part Diamond Crystal kosher salt to 1/2 part garlic powder, there'd be a lot more salt in here. So what I did was weighed out 1 ramekin of Diamond Crystal kosher salt, and then did the same weight for Lowry's seasoned salt. And as you can see, these are the exact same weight, but there's much less in this one. So that means for the typical rub, I'm gonna gonna go in with 2 parts 16 mesh black pepper to this weight equivalent of 1 part Diamond Crystal kosher salt, Lowry's, and our half part garlic powder. And that should give us a nice flavorful rub with some wonderful savory notes that's not gonna be too salty, and we're still gonna have that heavy pepper component, which will give us that wonderful Texasy bark, which I'm after on these burnt ends. On we go. Nice heavy coating, folks, you know the drill. I thought about going on with a binder. I really thought about it. I got some mustard right here, but I've decided against it. I'm just not a big fan of binders. Although in this circumstance, I think it would make sense just because burnt ends are really known for all their flavor. So adding a little mustard to the party wouldn't be a bad thing, but I don't know. I don't think you really get the taste of mustard, especially after the way we cook these. So I'm just gonna keep it traditional. Don't forget the sides, folks. Come on. It's kind of blowing my mind how much this still just looks like a tiny little brisket. Maybe I'll have to do this again, but actually just slice it up. I'm a little worried though, because it's still pretty thin over here, so this might curl up, probably will. You know, it's an experiment today, folks. We're gonna see how it goes. And that is looking pretty much perfect to me. Let's fire up the pit. One of these days, I'm gonna make some snake burn ends if this pesky little rascal doesn't get out of my boots. On the pit she goes. Fatty side up, thick side towards the fire. We're gonna rock this pit around 250 degrees for the next few hours, then probably bump it up to 275, and then we'll check back in. Fellas, let's talk about your diet real quick. Fast food, protein bars, candy, soda, chips, these are all considered ultra-processed foods with lots of ingredients and additives designed to make foods ready to eat and cost less. But they also contain large amounts of trans fats, which is an unhealthy type of fat that when consumed in large doses can lower your testosterone levels, and we don't need that. The consumption of ultra-processed foods has been on the rise since the 80s, and the average man's testosterone levels have been dropping substantially in that same time period. And it's not just older guys, this affects men of all ages. So let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is a world leader in at-home testing kits and male hormone tests, which let you easily test your testosterone levels in the comfort of your own home. You can order a testing kit to be delivered to your home in discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the lab, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. The results are reviewed by a clinician and a member of the Let's Get Checked nursing team, and a nurse may call you to review the results. Let's Get Checked laboratories are CLIA approved and CAP accredited, which is the highest ranking of accreditation. So if you want to test your hormone levels without leaving the comfort of your home, visit trylgc.com/chuds to get 30% off your test. Again, link in description, that's trylgc.com/chuds to get 30% off. Thank you, Let's Get Checked. It's been like 9 hours and this thing has finally made its way up to about 180 degrees, which is shocking. I really thought this was gonna be like a 6-hour cook, but you know, I guess it is pretty thick. You know, I really planned on doing this all in one day, but now it's like 2 in the morning and I'm gonna rest this thing overnight. I mean, this is a brisket after all. It still looks like a tiny little brisket and that bark is looking spectacular. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I think I can get away with a single piece for this wrap. As you can see, I'm going with a paper wrap today because I kind of want this to get that nice soft bark on there and get nice and tender and nice and juicy. So into my toaster oven, this goes at 155 degrees until tomorrow at some point. After a 12-hour overnight heated rest, let's see how this thing is looking. Ooh, looking good to me. I mean, again, I'm gonna have to do this again because this is the best part of the brisket cooked in its entirety. This would make for some amazing sandwiches. Bark, looking fantastic, feeling nice and wobbly. Nothing wrong with that. So now it's time to cube this up into burnt ends. But first I'm gonna let this rest for about 20 minutes or so, just because I don't wanna cut into this when it's too hot. I've seen a lot of people online cutting into their briskets to make burnt ends when they're steaming hot, and all that steam coming out is just moisture from your meat that's being lost. And we don't want that. So I'm gonna let this rest for a wee bit and then we will cube it up. And again, you don't have to do the overnight heated rest. In fact, this would be a really great thing to do if you're doing a pop-up or a barbecue event or something. Just get them all to this stage and then show up, cube them up on site, finish them off. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, how are you doing? That looks amazing. The marbling on that. It's all fatty brisket. And this is the biggest Texas style burn end I've ever seen. That is incredible. Beautiful smoke ring, tons of marbling in there, wonderful amount of bark. I gotta say, I might be onto something here. This is looking fantastic. So you can make these cubes whatever size you like. I'm going about an inch by inch square, cutting like butter. Love it. I wish you could buy just this cut because, oh, come on, folks. Look at that. Beautiful stuff. All right, now to cube these up. Nothing wrong with that. This is just feeling so nice. And there we have it, folks. A beautiful pile of some brisket burnt ends made entirely out of fatty point meat. But we're not done yet. At this stage, you've got a few options. You could enjoy these as the little morsels they are right now, which I'm inclined to do because these already look fantastic. But you could also hit them with another finishing rub, like a nice sweet rub would be great, or maybe just some brown sugar. And of course, you can also sauce these. So I think I'm gonna do all three. So in these crude little buddy boats here, I'm gonna keep these ones naked. Well, might as well throw a dollop of Wagyu beef fat in there. These ones I'm gonna hit with some brown sugar. Oh, yeah. Well, might as well throw a dollop of butter in there. And these ones I'm gonna hit with some barbecue sauce. Today I'm going with some Texas Tang, made here locally in Austin. Thank you for sending me this. Oops. Oh, nothing wrong with that. Well, since I got the butter out. Back on the pit these go. Rocking about 300 degrees on here. And we're not gonna cook them for too much longer, just trying to heat them through. Let all that butter melt, let the sugar dissolve. Let that sauce tack up and cook on there real nice, and then we'll check back in. 2 hours later, these are coming off the pit and looking and smelling fantastic. I'm gonna let these cool down and then we'll dive on in. Would you just look at them, folks, in all their glory, nice and barky. You know they're smoky, rendered, delicious little morsels of pure fatty brisket. We're gonna start off with these guys over here, the nice classic raw dog burnt ends, most similar to Texas style. Oh my God. Oh, it's so smoky. It's so barky. So good. A little smokier because these inner pieces got some smoke on them. You can see by the color alone. Very tasty. Highly recommend it. Nice and squishy. They're also a bit crispier, which is kind of nice. In the middle here, we got the ones with butter and brown sugar, and they are looking beautiful. Just glistening. Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that. Oh, oh, that is fantastic. I'm not usually a fan of sweetness with my beef, but that is something else. That is really good. It reminds me of like a pork belly burnt end. You know, those are usually pretty sweet. Is someone singing over there? Between the birds and the bugs and the people singing, I forgot how noisy spring is around these parts. I think I might like this one even better. It's got that glaze to it. It's super tasty. I mean, it's beef fat, butter, brown sugar, smoky, tender. Can't go wrong with that, folks. And then finally, we got the ones that are sauced. Looking especially tasty, nice and juicy, nice and sticky. That sauce cooked on real well, and of course, nice and tender. Oh, that's real good. Tangy. I guess that's why they call it Texas Tang. Yeah, that's tasty. That tastes a lot more like barbecue that I grew up with, you know? Heavily sauced, smoky. That is good. Again, not really my style. This tastes like something that I would get at a festival or something, you know? Kind of built to please all palates. A little sweet, a little spicy. Very good though. It's got a time and a place, but I think I prefer these two, where these are just a little bit drier than if you were to cut them off of a actual brisket. So I think these are the winner. The butter, brown sugar, beautiful little burnt ends. Really can't go wrong with that. They're barky, they're sweet, they're tender. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Nice and squishy, good amount of fat on there, barky all the way around, but the sweetness really adds a nice note. But again, if you're gonna do this, might as well do all three and decide for yourself. But without further ado, I think it's time for the official taste test. All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to make some absolutely fantastic brisket burnt ends. I highly recommend giving this a try if you've never done it before. It is a super fun cook, and you can really make those burnt ends taste however you like. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed by that cut of just the point meat from a brisket. It's a lot bigger and meatier than I was expecting it to be, and we may have to revisit that at some point in the future. But that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you want to see me cook next. If you do give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making all of these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.